Weapon, armor, magic elements, identity homogenized, melee range magic. Should gameplay feel more distinguishable? Pretty easy answer insofar as absolutely. I mean, the whole point of playing a fantasy game, the whole point of being in a fantasy game is that idea of it being fantastical. When you think about being a warrior in a game, you want to be a warrior, right? That's what you want to be. When you think about being a death knight or you think about being a warlock, there's something that comes to mind there. There's an idea that manifests itself even before you play the game. And that idea needs to be delivered. Now, where things get weird for me is when you have gameplay decisions that break so far from the lore perspective of the game that it almost becomes unforgivable. Now, you're almost always going to have to break some lore in order for gameplay to work. A very good example of this is something we spoke about just yesterday during the Patreon live stream. So, the Lich King fight. Do you guys know what was the difference between the Lich King fight in-game and the Lich King fight in lore? Because the answer is actually so fucking badass. In lore, we barely fought Arthas. He destroyed us almost immediately. Like, it was not even a fight. Arthas stood there, tasted us, so he allowed us to fight him. He tasted us to see if we were strong enough, and then by the time he was sort of bored and he had seen what he needed to see, he killed us. Just bam, done, easy life. In game, we took him to 10% HP. In reality, we never took him to 10% HP. We barely took any of his HP. Arthas was toying with us and playing with us the whole time. The light intervened just before we got completely resurrected as now part of Arthas' army. The light is the thing that intervened and killed Arthas as a result of that intervention. So that's a good example of where gameplay meets lore, and you can't really tell the story in gameplay that the lore is going to be telling you. Because players need to see some kind of evidence that their damage is doing something. Because, well, for phases to work, you need a 70%, and you need a 60%, and you need a 50%, right? So you need a sort of health pool. But in lore, we never took 90% of Arthas' HP. We took none of his HP. He was simply too strong for us. Now, when I look at the World of Warcraft character or class design, what pisses me off is when you think of a warlock, you're thinking of a caster with demons or demonic power. The demons come to his aid. He's mastering and commanding these demons. This is what you think about when you think warlock. You think dark magic. Actually, let's be very clear. When I say warlock, most people will think magic. Now, when I say warlock in the sense of World of Warcraft, most people think, right, foul magic, very specifically, because this is where the warlocks drag or pull their magic from. Foul means demonic, demons, demon servants, that kind of thing. So it's a warlock, it's a magic user that draws its power from the nether, summons forth demons to do things. But then the gameplay element takes this further insofar as, well, actually, the only warlock that needs demons is really the demonology warlock. That's the one that really uses the demons. The other warlocks have a demon, but doesn't really matter all that much. What about curses and dots? Well, actually, dots and curses and things, not really a big deal for the demonology one. Also not really a big deal for the destruction one. Really, it's only the Affliction Warlock that's going to do a lot of dot damage. You know, they sort of curse you and then watch your health drain away as they get more powerful. That's more like an Affliction Warlock thing. And the direct damage, the demon bolts and stuff like that, oh, for that, really, you want to do the Destruction Warlock. All right, but then what the fuck is a Warlock thing? Is there such a thing as a Warlock? Because you have 3 different Warlocks, 3 different Warlock playstyles. Like, none of them play the same. So then, what is a warlock? Am I a warlock or am I not a warlock? As soon as you get to this sort of confusion where you have 3 different warlocks and each and every one of them plays completely different to any of the others, you have to start going, well, I think we've lost complete touch with what the origins of this class is supposed to be. A Warlock is a Warlock and should do Warlock things. You can absolutely have specialization into other things, but that should not remove the baseline what a Warlock is. Now, am I suggesting that you remove all specs from the game? No, you can still have those specs, but take it back to the olden days of World of Warcraft, you know, where all Warlocks fundamentally played similarly. The only difference is if you were a Destruction Warlock, you got a couple of extra spells, and some of your dots didn't do nearly as much damage. You might drop a dot. I think as a Destruction Warlock, you would cast Corruption, but you wouldn't cast Agony, considering that you didn't have Empowered Agony because you weren't Affliction, and normal baseline Agony didn't do as much damage. So you usually dropped Agony from your rotation. At least this was in Wrath, and but you did have Immolate into Corruption, and then you would use your sort of more baseline. I think you still drained Soul as well. So as a old school Destruction Warlock, you would use Incinerate, which is you unlocked later on. So you would use Incinerate until 25%, and then you would switch to Drain Soul, because Drain Soul still did a fuck ton of damage, even as a Destruction Warlock, due to how things were built. If I remember correctly, I could be completely off here. It's been years since I've actually played Wrath of the Lich King Warlock. But there was a lot of crossover between the different the different specs. The specs were more specializations, which is, funnily enough, what the word spec means. Only in modern day World of Warcraft, the word spec means brand new fucking class. I don't like that. I hate that. Because I also feel like it limits what you can do with the classes. If you have 3 different specs on every single class, and you have, 12 classes, and some of those classes even have 4 specs, you're limited in what you can do for each and every one of those specs. You can only have this many abilities before, well, what other abilities are you going to give him? That's it. This is the abilities that you have. Whereas if you just had most specs, so if you had a Warlock and a Warlock was just a Warlock, that Warlock could have access to 12, 13, 14 spells. Easy. Damage spells. I'm talking rotation damage spells. You could do very cool things with the class that you can't do when you have 3 different Warlocks, and all of those Warlocks need cool things to fucking play with. So yeah, to answer your question, I fucking loathe the way the World of Warcraft's class system works at the minute. I hate it. It is just horrible. I hate the spec system. I don't know why people would enjoy it, because ultimately it just feels like it's too bland and too homogenous across the board. That's not even talking about World of Warcraft's revolutionary game design, which basically is builder spender. That's what Blizzard deems as the best way to design a class. Let's make every single class in World of Warcraft a builder spender, because that's going to feel so unique. And it's like, well, the only classes or class specs that feel unique in World of Warcraft are the odd ones that isn't builder spender. You know, it's sort of like, well, what's the fucking point then? This makes no sense. Why? Why would you assume that this is what every class does? So yeah, it's just a little bit annoying, you know? Slight annoyance that I have with the spec system.